Hello and welcome back. As we can see, the wet palette is out now, and the bust is on one side. I've just propped it up on some blue tack so you can actually get a bit of a better look at it when I put it down rather than just looking at the top of its head. What I'm going to use now is I'm going to start to put the kind of soft tissue areas in to start adding some definition. I don't need to do that yet, but I prefer to do it at this stage because it gives me a bit of a roadmap to follow. And to do that, I've made a glaze using scale 70, or it's not really a glaze, I've just very heavily thinned scale 75 Indian Shadow, which is the red one. And I'll hopefully try and get better at doing this on camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just doing the mouth actually. Hopefully it's on camera. Yeah. So using this reddy pink with the glaze, I'm just going to put the colour inside the mouth and up in between the teeth. And it doesn't matter if you do come onto the gums a little bit at this point, because gums are pink. Sorry, lips can be pink. Okay, so I am just working this colour in all the way around the mouth to the inner lip, being sure to get all around the base of the cigar. Okay, now what I'm going to do, wash the brush, just leave a little bit of paint, a little bit of water on the brush, and I'm just going to pull, if you can see that, let me try and get it to focus better. I'm just going to pull the pigment out across the lip, using the pigment to create the lines of lips that we're all so used to. I'm going to do the same thing now, but I'm going to do the eye areas. Making sure I get into the tear ducts. Okay, now what we're going to do is thin that colour even more, so it's just like a very fine misty pink. I'm going to use that just to overlay into these cracks a little bit around the eyes and start to build up some depth of details and tones that just help the model to start to come to life a little bit. We're just thinking about where you'd find softer tissue. So we've got nostrils, we've got eyeballs, gums, ears. And I'm going to use that same pink just to start to pick out a few more of the details on the brow. I'm going to wet brush it, I'm going to pull it over the vertical surfaces, and I'm going to feather it in. So we're left with just the pigment in the depressions. Going to take a bit more of the neater colour, the stronger colour. I'm just going to come in and I'm going to pick the eyes in. Again. I like to use this quite pinky tone just to start to put details back in, because it looks stark when it goes on, but actually it dries pretty neutral. And it's quite soft. Which means it does start to add some quite nice contrast very quickly. Don't be afraid to move the pigment around with your finger, obviously. It's a bit of a laborious process, this, now bringing the bust to life, compared to the speed in which we do airbrushing, but I'm a big fan, to be honest. I like to, there you go, let's give some better contrast. I like to do this side of the paint job quite a lot. Makes me happy to add the personality into the miniature quite quickly, just bringing it to life. And then once we've got the roadmap of these colours, we can then work hard later to sort of blend them in and soften them all up. But right now it's about plotting where they're going to go. As you can see, I'm just working the shadows again, just overlaying on top of the stubble with that red, which is giving us another set of depth, which is really nice. I'm going to do the same, of course, down here. As we start to accentuate the shadows a little. Just a quick bit of wet brush feathering just to soften that. To avoid that being too stark, I'm going to just feather that in. Obviously, because you've got the varnish on there, from earlier, until this colour's solidly dry, it will reactivate and you can move it around, and that's great. I'm actually going to put a very soft layer of this all the way along the chest. Doing this is trial and error, really, isn't it? You put a bit on, you take a bit off, you put a bit on, you take a bit off. You keep working until you find that happy medium. It gives you the colour definition, but doesn't look ridiculous, doesn't look too pink or... Now we're going to use the pink now, the same red that we're using, to overlay the scar tissue. I'm going to do this with a kind of irregular pooling, oh sorry, I should do it on camera, irregular pooling stipple, trusting that the pigment will flow. Which it has done, which is good. Okay, and then we're going to do what we did before. We're going to drag and pull, so pick and pull, just until we can soften that in so the skin around it looks pinker, but it feathers in the edges of the glaze that we just put on. And again we can see that varnish layer we put in is working wonders for us here, because it's given me more time to take this and to soften it back out again into the surrounding tissue. That's ready for us to work up a bit later with a light colour. Obviously scar tissue is overlaying light and dark. So what I'm going to do now is just focus on any of the cracks around the model where it would have crevices or anything like that, like the neck here. And you can see I'm putting the colour in and then I'm tapping it away with my finger or drawing it away from the raised areas. Using your finger to create a bit of texture as well, you know, your finger leaves a pattern. That's no bad thing. Okay, so I'm just going to feather in the glazing that I've just done again. Just to soften the transition up. ready for the third coat on the eyeballs. And this time we're just focusing on the outer edges. And leaving the light in the centre. I'm going to go over the teeth one more time, just to get a real pink hue in and under the teeth for when we start building up the bone later. And we're going to do that thing where we drag and pull out the glaze again. Really love this model. It's really fun to paint. You notice I haven't reapplied any glaze to my brush for quite a while, and that's because all I'm really doing is pushing this colour around just to put the slightest tint in. And you can see here in the neck where it had collected, I'm just removing that because I don't want that to be too dark in there. Just spreading it up and drawing it off. Okay, just put that down for a second. I think what I should probably do now is just start to plot in the hair a little bit more. And I am going to use some ink to do that. I'm going to use some soft tone from Scale 75, from Army Painter. And I think I might just use the ink itself in successive layers just to bring the hair to life. Because the stubble colour I went for was quite browny anyway. So if I work up just a nice soft mohawk of soft brown. Oh, sorry, not on camera. I think while that is drying, what I'm going to do is just get some of that texture on the end of the cigar that I need, and I'm going to use Games Workshop texture paint for that. And it doesn't really matter which one, to be honest. I think I'll use Armageddon Dust because it's, oh wow, half dry. Wow, like concrete actually. Oh dear, well done Games Workshop, your pots are as always shit and prone to heavily drying up. This one can't actually be that old. I think I bought this for the Necron commission I was doing. So what I used was a clay shaper then, if you were wondering, to move the material around. I prefer to use clay shapers when I'm dealing with texture paints because the silicone just makes them a bit easier to play with. Okay, so here on the end of the cigar I want some glowing embers later, so I'm going to use a pretty unceremonious dollop of this. There we go. So now that's on, and then I'm just going to use the clay shaper just to put some texture into it. Ironic, I know. And then we'll leave that to dry. But that, when it's dried, obviously the sand in there will provide the texture I need for the end of the cigar for later on. And I think at that point we'll call this video a day. He says, reaching for a bit of colour. I just want to get some colour in there. We can see this handsome chap coming to life now. Okay. Thanks very much for watching. Next time we come back, I will be doing more work on the lowlights first. We'll start with the shadows. We'll put the eyebrows in. We will start to plot the eyeballs in. And we will start to just work more on the hair area. It's going to be a slow process, this one. I'm going to get it to the point where I like it, then I'm going to add any tattoos if I decide to add any tattoos, and then I'm going to do any filter colours or OSL or whatever else I want to do. But we'll do it slowly but surely, because this is a nice piece, and this will be competition season stuff, I think, because I like it. So I'll actually do this one to comp standard, which means that you'll be able to see it in person in Salute and Euro and places like that if you're watching. Alright, thanks a lot guys. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.